Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the last time we had an error where if I set a date here, I get the total amount of the value here wasn't changing. So I think it's actually a good thing in the end, but let me explain why that is. So for example, if we go to, let's say, in February 11th, where we know there's actually some records there, and this is what I get. So you see I get $185 here as the total, and of course there's nothing on page 2, so which means all the records are here. But we can make it happen if we lower the number of items per page to maybe 4, and let's hit go. And as you can see, the value has not changed at all. It's still 185. Now it turns out, after going through it, that this is the total for every record on every page. Excuse me there. So every record for every page, which means it's giving you the total of the selected period, which is actually quite nice. And let me explain why. Regardless, there's page 2 here, right? But the problem is, if I go to page 2, then the total is removed for some reason. I have no idea why that is. That's crazy. Okay, so it's a good thing that it shows the absolute total. Now let me explain why this happens. Let's look at our query one more time, right? So I'm going to go to controllers and admin. So let's see what phenomena is going on here. Since we've given it just one date, it's probably going to this section here, because this is where it goes when only the start date is selected or is given. And then it's going to have this query right here. Now, what I forgot is that the sum total of this query, because we are telling it to create a sum for the column named total, right? That's what we are doing. So the problem is that the limit and offset only work after the columns have been selected, right? This is how it works internally in MySQL. So what it does is that when reading the database, it's going to evaluate whatever is here, right? It's going to select whatever you've told it to select, and then once it's done, it then selects a limit of certain rows and then does an offset. So it will use the offset and limit to create that paging system. Now keep in mind that this paging system only happens after the reading of the correct where clause has been done. So in this case, our where clause is all this, but then the problem comes in. So this is not where the problem is. The problem is when we do this, because when you tell it to find a sum, it will always return one row, regardless how many rows are there, because we just want the total amount in that particular column. So it's always going to return one row. This means that the limit and offset are officially redundant on this section here. Okay, so that's one thing to keep in mind. So let me show you this in action. If we go to our page here, let's try and read, actually let's just go to sales here, sales table, and then we do have a total here, right? But look at how the SQL is read. So if we say select all from sales, now if this returns every row, so if I just hit go, you see it returns every row here. So there are many rows, which means the limit and offset can actually function here. But if I go to the inline here and tell it to do a sum of a particular column, in our case, which is total or amount, or maybe quantity, let's do sum QTY, like that. Okay, let's see what happens. And as you can see, there's only one result, which is a column named sum quantity, as we have done here, which gives you a value of 23. So it has added all the quantities and give you that. Now, regardless what I do here, the result will always be a single row because it's just the sum. And so if I say limit to offset 4, it doesn't really make any sense, because that's actually, the offset will work. Let me go in here and do this. If I edit and then I'm just going to say where 1, and then I say limit 1, right? And then I say offset 10, like this. So it's not going to return any result here. As you can see, the result is empty because I've told it to offset. It returned 1 row and I told it to offset by 10, so which means it completely ignores that. This is why if we go to the second page of this, even though we get results here, we don't get a total here because of that offset that is going on. So in order to solve that problem is we just need to remove the limit and offset on both of these, the parts that have the sum, because those things don't really mean what we want to mean. We don't even need an order by, because there's always going to be just one result. So I'm just going to remove all of that, and I'm going to refresh. So you see now we get the 185 regardless what page we are on, as long as regardless what page we are on right now. If I go to the first page, 185 for the entire period. So I think this works better because you can go through and see each record, but you still get the absolute total at the top here for that selected period. Let's try up to April 1 and go from that to April 1. Okay, this is strange. What's going on? Interesting. End date. Yeah, 1st for 2nd, 11th February. No, this is not supposed to happen. So let's check it out and see what's going on here. We got no results whatsoever. Okay, so let me look at what query was actually run here by doing show query. Okay, let's see what's going on. Okay, so there it is. The year is 2022, 2nd February. That's good. But then we have and year is equal to blah blah blah, order by limit offset 4. Yeah, everything looks pretty good to me. Let me select this query and try to run it directly here. Let's see what we get. What is the problem? It gets me an empty result still. Why? And let's see where this is greater, and year is right. Yeah, for some reason this worked previously, but why isn't it working here? Oh, wait. Year date is equal to or less than 2022, that's fine, and month is less than or equal to 4, and day is equal to date less than 1. This is pretty interesting. So what's going on here? I'm not really sure here. This is the first time I'm bummed out. Okay, so let's try and remove what we don't need. Let me do that. Okay, so that's not it. I know if I remove the other part here, it's going to work. So let's try and remove day. Okay. I think I understand what's going on here. So my query is flawed actually. It's actually flawed because it looks at these things one by one, which is not really ideal. Okay, it may not seem apparent right now, but look at this. Let me go back to editing line. I think this is where the problem is. You see, the day should be equal to or less than 1 because this is looked at as a single unit. None of these have a day that is less than or equal to 1. So just that disqualifies this whole thing, because all of these should be true. The year should be equal to that, the date, the month should be equal to that, but what about the day? Okay, so looking at these things individually doesn't do well. So I think what we need is to use the in-between between this date to that date inside our query. So what I would do is I want to reconstruct this query a little bit. So I'm going to say where date is equal to or greater than, and then I'm just going to merge these guys with a dash so that it's the same date, and then let's get back to date is equal to or less than, and then let's move this like so and that like this. Alrighty then, so if where date is greater than that or date is less than that. So let's try that. And there we go. So we do get the results that we want. This is much simpler actually. I don't know why I had to construct that whole thing. For some reason in my mind that worked better. I don't know why, but it seems it has to take into account everything. So this is much better. Now you can use the between value as well. You just say and. You can see where date, if you don't want to use greater or less than, but I think this is better for readability's sake. So you can say between like this, okay, and then you can remove that. So it becomes where date between this and that. So this should work as well. And as you can see, it works just as well. Okay, but the between actually includes the current dates as well. As you can see here, they're all returned. So let's change our query to that instead. So let's come down right here and let's do what we did there. Much shorter query actually. So copy that. Let's come back here. So I don't want to replace this immediately. Actually, it means I don't need any of this at all. So I can remove this and just put that in there. I'll leave the order by, etc. Same thing here. Paste. Okay. So this will replace with start date. And this will replace with end date. Don't forget the $sign. Okay, so between that and that, let me change this to capital so we can see that it's a keyword, just like select. Alrighty then, that should solve the problem. On this one, if there's only start date, it should be equal to the start date. So let me put that there, and let me put that there as well. Oopsie, look what I did now. See, I forgot to put this sum total as total here. Okay, let me paste it there as well and move this over. And of course, we only have a start date here. So it's not between, we just say instead of between, we'll say equal to, and then let's remove the rest of this. Actually, there's a semicolon there that I need removed. So start date, blah. Looks like we sorted that problem out. One we created ourselves. Let me remove the query show there. so that we are back to normal. Okie dokie. Very cool. So now it shows us the true colors. Okay, very good. Very, very good. Okay, pretty good. So here we are done. Everything works accordingly to plan, as you can see. Now we just have to go to graph view and start creating an actual graph, since all our problems have been sorted. Now the other issue is that I want this ability to also be on the graph view, so we'll just copy it over so that we can get the data from our graph and do exactly what we're doing here, right? Though with the graph, we need to know if we are viewing the month view or daily view or something like that. But what we'll do is we'll start with a current month graph here and see where we move from there.